Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Exploring the Wine Glass and Allure of the Poor, sponsored by Dresita Wines. I am so excited today because anybody who knows me, anybody who listens to this podcast, knows that I am a Spanish wine freak, but beyond just a Spanish wine freak, I am a Galicia fan. Rias Baixas is like dreamland to me. And today I have a special guest, Noah Chichester, who is Wines of Galicia. So, of course, we need to have a conversation. So, welcome, Noah.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yes. And so we were just off camera. We were talking about the time. It's 9 o'clock here in California in the morning. What time is it there?
I'm in New York, so
Oh,
it's
you're in New
noon.
York now. Oh,
No,
okay.
yeah, so no Galicia, yeah.
Oh,
All good.
okay. All right. I got you. I got you. I was gonna say, if you were in Galicia, the background would be like your window, right?
Yeah, no. We'll be lucky if we don't hear like honking horns or something out the window. Yeah.
That is true. Every time I would do a podcast from New York, there's at least one fire engine or one police
Right.
car or several honking horns. Yes, yes. Um, so we have that you actually kind of moved to Galicia in 2018. You started the Wines of Galicia project. And according to the website, it's because you saw a gap in English language resources. So, what made you like? I know when I fell in love with Galicia and Rias Baixas, like, and that whole area. What was your moment of, yep, this is my region?
Well, I mean, it was kind of a long, slow falling in love, but really it was when I first moved there. You come down in the airplane and you see that it changes. You're in Madrid and it's kind of brown. Then you fly over Castilla y León, you go north, northwest, and then suddenly it changes to this green, really amazing, lush vegetation. And you can see it coming down, kind of like you come down through the clouds. It's this magic moment. So the moment I think I fell in love was when I first stepped off the plane or when I saw it out the plane window. I already knew that I was going to move there, but
Okay.
it was really when I got there, it was like, wow, this is really something special.
And what made you move there?
So I was doing this English teaching program. I didn't move for wine at all. I was fresh out of college and didn't really know what to do with myself. So I discovered that the Spanish government had this program that they still run today. Basically, the requirements, you don't have to do one of these English teaching classes or anything. The requirements are be a living, breathing human person and be a native English speaker. And they finance you, you go over and they place you in a school. So it can be either a public school or in my case, I was lucky I was in an official language school with adults. So I was having these high level English conversations like we're having right now with these people who probably speak better than the both of us put together. They've been learning all their lives. And that was why I got to live there. I got to go to Spain and then when you do the program, you can choose the region, and I ended up choosing Galicia because I'm from upstate New York originally, and I said I can't go to the south of Spain. I'll melt. I'm used to this kind of cold weather, and Galicia is not cold, but it's still kind of it's rainy in the wintertime. It's kind of like this fall weather, like we're having right now on the East Coast, like we're getting into this blustery October, November kind of thing. And so I said, all right, I can deal with that. I can be cozy with some soup or something throughout the
Right.
winter, even if it rains all the time. And so I ended up moving there.
And did you were speaking English with them, but did they teach you Spanish?
So I spoke a little Spanish when I got there. It
Okay.
definitely was rusty, but they taught me a lot. I mean, it's great to have this kind of cultural interaction with adults because kids, they're not as cognizant of we I remember one lesson we did was about idioms, about phrases, like a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, or the pen is mightier than the sword, or things like that. And they just started tossing out all of these things in Spanish that, oh, we have this equivalent and we have that.
Oh.
So they taught me a lot of nuance in the language. They luckily my base was there already, so I could learn from them too. And then I ended up learning what I really ended up learning there was the Galician language. So in Galicia, they speak their own language. There's three co-official, what they call co-official languages in Spain. There's Galician, there's Catalan, and there's Basque. And people talk a lot about Catalan and Basque,
That's-
but not a lot of people talk about Galician, or they don't know that Galician is its own language. They say, I get it all the time when I say, well, I write about Galician wines, I teach about Galician wines, and people say, oh yeah, they have that dialect. And it always is like, I want to pull my hair out.
Right.
I'm like,
Not a
no, it's not a
dialect.
dialect.
Not a
It's a
dialect.
language. The
Huh.
language. So yeah, grammatically speaking, linguistically, from a linguistic perspective, it is separate enough that it's its own language. But unlike something like Basque, which is totally different from any other language, Galician has some elements of Spanish and some elements of Portuguese. So if you speak Spanish,
Oh.
you can learn Galician fairly easily. It's fairly easy to understand.
Oh, see, now I thought it was based partially off of Celtic.
So there are, if you go far back enough, right, there are some words that probably come from the Celtic languages, and they share a lot of the Galicians. They share a lot of connections, especially genetically, like DNA
Mm.
wise, with Celtic, the other Celtic nations. There's a lot of redheaded people in Galicia. You see a lot of red hair.
So I'd fit
But as far as
right in. See?
you'd fit, yeah,
I
exactly,
belong
you'd fit right
there.
in. Well, it's so funny because some people say, "Oh yeah, I don't know if they're flattering me or not," but they say, "Oh yeah, you could pass for a Galician because, I'm not a redhead, but nor am I, as dark complexioned as some other people in Spain." And so they say, "Oh yeah, you could fit right in the north as a northerner. Maybe not so much when I first get there in the summer and I have my sunburn, but yeah, they say you could fit in." But yeah, the Celtic connection is really interesting. I mean, Galician is a Romance language, so it descended from Latin. First, you had this Galician Portuguese in the medieval period, and then once Spain and Portugal kind of separated as countries, the language is separated as well. But there are definitely, as far as the Celtic connections, they play the bagpipes. A
Great.
lot of the folk music has a very Celtic lilt to it. They play these traditional, the fiddle, the bagpipes, the flute, all of these things. And some of the dances as well, they do this dance called the muñeira that's kind of like, sort of has elements of a jig, has elements of these other northern Spanish folk dances. So I would say there's definitely a connection there for sure. You would fit right in.
Ah, love it. All right. So, before we get too far into the weeds, we keep talking about Galicia. We're talking about it as, this green, lush area. It's known as Green Ireland, Green Spain. But let's describe exactly where it is. How do people get to Galicia? You talked about landing, but how do people get there? And where is it in relation to the rest of the autonomous regions?
So Galicia is in the top left-hand corner of Spain. If we picture a map, there's this little part of Spain that juts out above Portugal on the Iberian Peninsula, and that is Galicia. So it is the top leftmost corner. We are as far northwest as we can be. And it's surrounded on most sides, on two sides at least, by the Atlantic Ocean. Galicia has the longest coastline of any autonomous community in Spain. So there's a lot of ocean that influences it a lot. There's a lot of rainfall. So we're going to talk about this, that it's very green. As far as how do you get there, that's a great question. People have been asking that question for centuries. So Galicia, one of the things that's great that makes it so fascinating is that it was very isolated for a lot of its history because you have the ocean on two sides, right? To the north and to the west, you have the Cantabrian Sea and the Atlantic Ocean, right? The same body of water, but different names. And then to the east, you have a couple of mountain ranges that separate it from Castilla León and Asturias. And then to the south, you have another mountain range that separates it from Portugal. So it was always really hard to get to Galicia. The railroad didn't even get there until the late 1800s. There's the fire engine in the back. I don't know if you could hear it going by. There it is. There it goes. So Galicia, it was always really isolated. So now we're lucky that we have some more connections. Obviously, the railroad's been there for a long time, but even just a couple years ago, they finally finished the AVE, the high-speed train that goes
Oh,
from Madrid and now goes to Orense, which is kind of smack in the middle of interior Galicia. So in about two and a
okay.
half hours from Madrid, you can be
Oh,
in Orense, and from there you can take a train to cities like A Coruña, where I was living. It's on the north coast. You can go to Vigo, which is kind of the gateway to Rías Baixas, or Pontevedra, another city there. And you can go up to Lugo as well, a really fascinating medieval city in the interior of Galicia as well. But what people should know is that Galicia is in the top left-hand corner of Spain. It's as far northwest as you can go, surrounded on two sides by water, two sides by mountains, pretty isolated. If you're going to go, you should rent a car to get around. Even today, the transport is not great in the interior. If you're on the coast, you can go zip up and down on buses or trains or whatever. But for me, to get the real experience, you have to kind of delve into these little nooks and crannies that it has and explore all the different parts of it.
And if you were just going to dedicate your trip to Galicia, how many days would you think would be required to get a decent understanding of the
I'm
region?
glad you said a decent understand. I was about to say the limit does not exist. How many days can you stay on your visa, right? How many?
Right.
Look, I think that you're doing a disservice to yourself if you only go to the cities or if you only stay on the coast. I think that to truly understand Galicia, there's a lot of different facets. There's a lot of different sides of Galicia. So I would say the number one things or the top things that you should see, right? You have to go to Santiago de Compostela because this is the end point of the Camino de Santiago, this medieval pilgrimage route that still operates today. All these people who trek 500 miles across the top of Spain to get there have to go to Santiago because it's the historical capital of Galicia and it's just really amazing, beautiful city. If you're a wine lover, of course, you have to go to Rias Baixas because that's what most people will know. So you have to go to Pontevedra, you have to go to Vigo, but then you have to go around and drive around and see all the little vineyards and all the tiny little small plots. And then you really, really have to go to the interior. And so I would visit, this is not on a lot of the guides that you'll see, but I would visit the Ribeiro wine region. Not Ribeira Sacra, you should go there too, but Ribeiro is this other wine region. It's really in the middle of Galicia, between Rias Baixas, between Ribeira Sacra, right in the middle there. But that is historically, it's the oldest wine region in Galicia, and
Oh,
it gives you a good gateway to understanding, well, the monks came in and they found that the grape growing place it was really great place to grow grapes, and they found the climate was good. So to understand historically kind of what's happened, you should go there as well. And then, you can go to Ribera Sacra and see all of these amazing terraced vineyards. So I would say a week and a half, even 2 weeks gives you enough time to, because I'm a big proponent of slow travel as well, not going and checking off a list and going
ding, ding, ding,
frantically from
ding,
place
ding.
to place, right?
Right.
Okay, we have to see this, and then we have to see this, and then we have to check off the tour guide.
Right.
Um, I think Galicia is one of these places that really you benefit from slowing down and just kind of taking a day and poking around in the countryside and stopping the car and, buy a box of cherries on the side of the road, right? Or do something, interact with people, right? Instead of going from point A to point B as quickly as possible.
And find some of the smaller things to enjoy versus just the things that are on every map that travel map.
Galicia is one of these places that's still kind of undiscovered, and
Mhm.
I always feel a little bad whenever I talk about it. I mean, it's my passion is talking about Galicia and telling people how great it is, but I also selfishly want it to remain a little
Right.
undiscovered. I'm like, don't go and ruin it. Don't go and so you have to leave room for slowing down because you have to be respectful about it. You have to be willing to kind of open up and let the there's a great quote by Robert McFarlane is an author I really love. He's written a couple of books about landscapes and wild places in England, and he has a book called The Old Ways about walking. And he says that just as we make marks on a landscape, the landscape can actually make a mark
Oh,
on us as well. And I think it's a really beautiful concept that you have to slow down and let a place make a mark on you.
you
Galicia has certainly made its mark on me. So I think when people go, that's the number one thing that you have to be cognizant of. Just slow down, look around,
and
be
appreciate
respectful,
it.
and let it make its mark on you. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And so we did mention a couple of times that it's called Green Spain. How do you think that bringing it into the wine world, the lush landscapes, the constant breezes, all that granite, how do you think that finds its way into the wines?
Galician wines are totally different from anybody who has sort of a passing acquaintance of Spanish wine will know. We're talking about body. They're lighter bodied, medium bodied. As far as the whites go, the reds are the same kind of thing. You're going to see a lot of lighter reds than what people might be used to in Spain. You're also going to see acid. They are very, very acid-driven wines. They're very fresh. There's a lot of lift, high-toned, fresh fruit character in all of the wines. Doesn't matter what it is, reds, whites. So people who are used to the sort of heavier, the reputation that Spain has had for a long time, these bold reds that stand up to a lot of oak aging,
Mm.
or even the fruit character of grapes like Tempranillo or Monastrell or even Mencía
Yeah.
from Bierzo, right? Totally, you go across the border, totally different profile. So I would say freshness, lifted wines, acidity-driven wines, and just really beautiful fresh fruit that kind of leaps out of the glass, super aromatic as well. And a lot of that comes from the climate. We have a cooler climate. We have a lot of breezes, ventilation, and so you have grapes that are adapted to deal with all of this rainfall and all of these cool climates. The ripening cycles are a little bit longer. For years and years and years, it was difficult for growers to even get to 11, 12% ABV. Now with climate change, obviously that is evolving, and so you do get higher alcohol levels, but we're not talking anywhere near the in other parts of the world, people are struggling with too much. They're
Right.
getting 15, 16, 17% ABV in these really ripe hot years. And in Galicia, it's I think climate change, as much as it may endanger some of the classic Mediterranean wine growing regions, I think Galicia is going to benefit in the sense that finally there's some really great balance coming to the wines. So where before, 10, 15 years ago, you might have even seen some greenness. Now it's just in a really, really perfect moment for balance of fruit, ripening, acidity, alcohol. Just a great, great place to be drinking wine right now.
And you hear Galicia and Ria Spicius is probably the best kind of recognized, I guess, region of it. And it's synonymous with Albariño, but you're talking about other grape varieties that are in there. So, like, what are some of the well, first, how about for those that don't really understand Albariño, give a little brief description of what Albariño is, and then what are some of the lesser known beauties that come from this region?
Albariño is a white wine grape that you should know. At this point, it's you're doing yourself a disservice because it's so accessible. A few years ago, people wouldn't have known Albariño because it may not have been available, but now it's the Galician wine, it's the Galician grape that is most available, especially in the American market. So Albariño is a white wine from Galicia. It's sort of native to this area between Galicia and Portugal. The Portuguese grow a grape that they spell Alvarinho with a V and NHO at the end. The Galicians spell it Albariño with a B and the N with a little squiggle on top,
Mhm.
Albariño, but it's the same grape. So the Portuguese don't come after me. I'm going to say that it's native to this area between Galicia and Portugal in the northwest of Spain. It makes wines that are really beautifully acid driven. If you are the kind of person who likes this light-bodied, acid-driven white wine, so I'm not I'm not going to get in trouble with the Galicians and say it's exactly the same as the Sauvignon Blancs and the Pinot
Oh,
Noirs or the Pinot
no.
Grigios of the world. But if we're people who like this sort of that end of the spectrum, right? We like our lighter, primary fruit-driven, acid-driven white wines. Then Albariño is totally something that should be on your radar. It's a thick-skinned grape, and so it's not just this like when we get really into technical winemaking terms, what we call like thiols and terpenes and all of these aromatic precursors, right? It's not just like a beautiful like tropical fruit smelling thing. It's got a little bit of texture to it as well. So it has a thick skin to stand up to all this rain, to all the humidity and moisture. And so what you're going to get is this characteristic kind of bitterness on the back of the palate as well. And a lot of people now are resting their Albariño on the fine lees, and so they're giving it a little bit more weight in the glass. So in addition to being aromatic, primary fruit, lemon, lime, citrus zest in general, sometimes you get apricot, you get white peach, sometimes you
Mhm.
get mandarin orange as well, depending on the ripeness, depending on where it is in Rias Baixas. But in general, just really beautiful citrus fruit, some kind of stone fruit, and then you get this beautiful salinity as well, a little bit of that
That's
bitterness
what
on
gets
the
me
palate,
every time, the
and
salinity.
yeah, it's just a really, really beautiful grape that more people should be drinking, in my opinion.
I agree. I agree. But it is that salinity that I think that the very first time I tasted an Albarino, I was like, oh, I can taste, you talk about wine can transport you, virtually to wherever you're drinking it. But Albarino to me is one of the biggest ones that does that transport because that salinity is just there. And the first time I tasted, I was like, oh, it's kind of, I get some salinity. And then I tasted another one and it was there. And I tasted another one. And you learn that that's really a taste of the place, basically.
Absolutely. And especially a lot of the Albariño, I'll venture to say most of the Albariño that people will be tasting comes from this Salnés Valley, the Val do
Hmm.
Salnés subzone. There's five subzones in the DO of Rias Baixas, and the Salnés Valley, very close to the sea. It's very cool. It's got a lot of this maritime influence. Some of the vines are even planted in sand right next to the Rias. The Rias are these kind of estuarine inlets, like where an estuary flows out to the sea and the sea flows in. So sometimes the vines are even planted close to the seawater. So totally you get that salinity. The thing that I really love now about Albariño, about Rias Baixas, is that there are these other subzones to explore, and there are people who are making really terroir-driven expressions. And so when you get into the subzone of the Condado do Tea, for
Hmm.
example, which is a little bit more inland, southern, you get that kind of orange blossom thing that I was talking about because it's just a hair warmer and just a hair, the wines are a little bit riper. And so you get this difference just in 10, 15, 20 miles. It's really,
Yeah.
really fascinating.
And so what would be some other grape varieties that are not quite as well known in that region?
The kind of there's the Fab Four
Okay.
of Galician winemaking, right? Albariño, Godello, Treixadura, these are all white grapes,
Mhm.
and Mencía is the other, the red grape that people should know. If you want your basic crib sheet of grapes to know in Galicia, if you go there, if you're sitting at a little terrace in Santiago de Compostela and they're like, "What do you want?" Those will
Mm.
probably be the four options that you'll be given, right? Albariño, Godello, Treixadura, and Mencía or
Okay.
Mencía, right? I
Mencia.
pronounce with the Spanish ceceo, but if you say
Theo. Yep.
Mencía,
Mencia.
whatever, it's all the thing. So Godello is from this area around the Dio of Valdeorras. Nobody really knows where Godello is from. I'm not going to get myself into trouble, so I'll just say it's from Eastern Galicia,
Yeah.
Castilla León, Galicia, somewhere in there. Treixadura, again, comes from the Ribeiro Dio. It's most widely planted there, but we don't really know. Somewhere in the area between Galicia and Portugal, the Portuguese over in Melgaço, Monção, they call it Trajadura. So it's the same grape, different name. But yeah, Galicia has always been in the modern expression of Galicia. So the past 40, 50 years has been known for white wines in
Wines.
the export market, in the rest of Spain, Albariño. Now Godello is really coming into its
Hmm.
own. Treixadura, again, Treixadura is more used in blends, so people talk less about Treixadura than they do about the region of Ribeiro. And then Mencía, right? Mencía is this flagship grape of Ribeira Sacra, this heroic viticulture region. You have crazy terraced vineyards planted on slopes that are almost vertical in some
Insane.
places. It's crazy. We can talk about that too. But now you have Mencía, you have Treixadura, Albariño, Godello. They're all kind of planted in every region of Galicia. Galicia's got five DOs, right? You've got Rias Baixas, you've got Ribeiro, you've got Valdeorras, you've got Ribeira Sacra, and you've got Monterrey. So all of those grapes are all over the place. But if you need to know four Galician grapes, those are the entry-level Galician grapes 101. Albariño, Godello, Treixadura, Mencía.
All right. And so you have on your site, you have an article or an kind of a shortened interview with Miguel Cornea, Reinventing Galicia.
Hmm.
And, this is one of the problems that we see throughout history, kind of as a region, goes through its political battles. It
Yeah.
seems to be you go from really caring about the wine to just bulking up the wine. And then as the political changes occur, then we go back to focusing in on it. So what do you did a little conversation about that battle between being artisanal, terroir driven versus having to get to America, having to
Yeah.
get the wines out.
Well, it's funny. I'm sitting here and I'm kind of holding back because what I want to get into is all of these crazy native grapes. So we
Yeah.
talk about Brancellao and Merenthau and Carabuñeira, and we talk about Loureira and all of these. They're fun to pronounce too in
Yes.
Galicia. But Galicia beyond the basic grapes 101, what people should know, or if they really are interested in delving into what Galicia is, they should look into, and they can, on the website, I have a grape breakdown, articles about these different grapes, like Branco Legítimo, which is planted in this tiny little town next to A Coruña called Betanzos, right? But now people are recovering. So anyway, all of that is to say that the real thing about Galicia that's really cool is that there are a lot of people who are doing this work of recovering traditional grapes, minority grapes, right, that are not like Albariño, Godello, Treixadura, Mencía, but that are there's half a hectare planted somewhere and they're going
Right.
to expand that and try and recover it. So the balance that you have to keep though is, do we want to sell wine and do we want to put ourselves on the map? And then after we're on the map, what do we want to be on the map for? So Galicia is really young as far as a quote unquote modern wine region goes. Um, the Ribeiro do, right, as a denominación de origen, as an official wine region, goes back to 1932. But that was because Spain had this statute of wine and all this. This is not like they were making wines in the modern way,
Mhm.
with as much care and with as many modern techniques as they are now. This was kind of people were making wine for bulk consumption. They would ship it off in a barrel to Vigo or to Santiago, and people would just drink it right out of the barrel, like in a carafe or something. There wasn't a particular winemaking culture. That kind of thing really only dates back to the 1970s. Rias
Wow.
Baixas as a region, people were not using stainless steel to vinify, right, until the 1980s, the late 70s, early 80s. Rias Baixas doesn't become a DO until 1988. Um, Ribera Sacra is barely 30 years old. 1996, it became an official DO, right? So a lot of the rest of the world has a big head start on Spain in general. They had that nasty little dictatorship thing for most of the last century, and there wasn't a lot of wine being exported, all of that. But Galicia in particular, as I said, it was so isolated. So a lot of the rest of the world has a head start. So now we're to the point where, okay, people might know Albariño, they might know Rias Baixas, they might know Galician wine in general. And the rest of the DOs, they take a look at that and they say, okay, well, Rias Baixas has Albariño. Well, Valdeorras, okay, we're going to stake our claim with Godello. Godello is our grape. Now, Ribera Sacra, okay, we're gonna take Mencía and Ribeiro. Okay, well, I guess we're going to take Treixadura and we're going to talk about grape variety, and we're not going to talk about terroir because we're going to simplify the consumer. You think about the attitude I think is like, the consumer out there who drinks a Pinot Noir, right? They're not going to drink a Gevrey Chambertin. They're going to drink a Pinot Noir, right? I don't care where it's from. I just want the grape. I want a
Yeah.
Cabernet Sauvignon. I want a Sauvignon Blanc. So it's grape based now. So against that, you have these small producers who are really kind of carrying the reputation. So you ask somebody a top sommelier, you say, well, who are your favorite producers from Rias Baixas, or you say, who are your favorite producers from Ribera Sacra, and they rattle off the names, right? Those people are not always on the best terms with the DOs, with the
Mhm.
official wine regions. So you have this really interesting political game of you have people who are holding up their reputation, but you have people who actually employ people and sell the wine. These guys that are
Right.
making 2,000 bottles a year, they're not employing an entire town. Whereas a cooperative, which will remain unnamed, is
Hmm.
employing a lot more people.
Right.
And if that goes under, if you stop selling those wines, then those people don't have jobs. So I think what Miguel is a friend, but I think what is missing is a little bit of pragmatism, a little bit of practicality from the either or discourse.
Right.
At some point, you have to learn to live with each other.
Exactly.
Um, what is true is that Galicia has a really they really don't have any policy when it comes to wine. It is true that the bigger players kind of move the strings, as it were. So I think what needs to happen is for Galicia and its organizations, the DOs, the marketing boards, whatever, that they need to kind of lean into this reputation that the smaller players are bringing in. But at the end of the day, it's basic economics. You can't ignore the people that make up 75% or whatever number of your
Right.
sales. So, but the consumer, we can do that too. The people who are listening, they can go out and they can say to their sommelier or their clerk in their wine shop, hey, I'm looking for something, I love this wine that costs 15.99, but I'm looking for something that might be the next tier up, that might be a little more artisanal. I'm looking to explore something, a different expression of this grape or this region. And that way you can learn and you can support the small guys at the same time.
Right. And that's kind of similar everywhere. In Paso Robles, we have, the big big four,
Yeah. Yeah.
that when anybody comes to the region, oh, I got to go here, I got to go here, I got to go here, I got to go here. Well, these are the people who help bring people into the area, but they're not at all as artisanal as the mom and pops. We have not like 98%, I think, are small family owned wineries. But if you go and ask general population, what wineries do you know from the region? They're going to name A, B, C, D, right? And
Right.
so I think it is kind of similar in a lot of places, and it is a balancing act. You have to be thankful that those big people bring them in, and as you said, are paying people, keeping them working. But then on the other end, we have to find ways to find the little guys too, and
Right.
walk into that place that you've never heard of before, and just give it a try.
Exactly, exactly. And at the end of the day, you have to hold everybody accountable and say, look, we can sell a bunch of wine and keep people employed, but we need to take care of this place. We can't take advantage of people financially,
Mhm.
economically. We have to farm sustainably because if not, we're not going to be doing this for much longer. We can't have this short-term sell baby sell mentality. We have to have a long-term, how am I going to leave things for the next generation?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And now many of your articles, you talk about and highlight the sense of Galicia, right? We've mentioned the terraces and the Atlantic Ocean and whatever. So is there a vineyard that you've been to, or a couple of vineyards that you've been to, that like when you first walked there, you were like goosebumps and oh my God, this is incredible, and still stick with you today as being exceptional? And not
Oh man.
necessarily wine wise, just beauty wise, breathtaking.
I think the thing to know about Galicia is that it's full of hills. And so odds are anywhere you go, you kind of come over, you crest a hill, and there's this amazing view in front of you. Um, I remember riding with Fernando Gonzalez of Algeida, crazy, great Ribera Sacra producer, I think Algeida, one of the OGs in the region. And I had gone to visit him, and we climbed into his little, I don't even know what the brand of the thing, it's like a Jeep, but
Like
it's tiny,
the little
right?
gator thing. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is. And one of these beautiful European little truck things that you don't think is going to run, but does. And we just chug along the main road. We're going like 10 miles an hour, whatever. People are whipping past us because Ribera Sacra, right? We're driving along this road. It's like the highways in Northern California, right? Where you have cliff to your one
Oh,
side and then it's
okay.
like drop off. That's it, right? So we're chugging along and then we go up into the vineyard and we're on these dirt paths and he's just like driving with one hand because he does this every day, right? And I'm kind of like my butt is just clenched and I am just sitting there like, okay, well if I die, I've lived a good life. This is it. All right, I guess I've seen this. And we get up there and we stop and we get out and he's talking about vines and I'm looking around and it's just breathtakingly beautiful. You have to, a picture does not do it justice. You really have to be there and see that. So yeah, that's a memory that I remember being there and being like, wow, I am so lucky that I get to be here and experience this. And at the same time, I was like, holy crap, people actually make wine here. They have to lug all of these grapes on their backs up the hills because they can't get the truck in there. So it really brought home that term that they used to talk about Ribera Sacra, heroic viticulture. It
Heroic
really is
viticulture.
heroism to work there. But yeah, just a vineyard like that just makes you it takes your breath away.
Yeah. And, balancing that act, like you were talking earlier about balancing that you love the region and you want to promote the region, but then on the other hand, you don't want the outsiders to ruin the region either. So, what do you think Galicia can do in order to make themselves a more represented, autonomous region? What can they do, or are they working on things to get this to happen, get people to be more knowledgeable of the region?
I think Galicia needs to step back and take a look at itself on the world wine stage and needs to, as I was saying earlier, have a long-term mentality rather than a short-term mentality. I think that the thing that I've seen with Spain, the problem with Spain a lot of the time is that there's this short term, we got to make as much money as possible because it's a bonanza and we don't know how long it's going to last mentality. And when you do that, it's like you're sawing the branch off that you're sitting on. Um,
Right.
you're exhausting all of these resources right away because it's great now, but you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So I think that people should go to Galicia. Wine lovers should go to Galicia, but the thing is be respectful, be open to having yourself changed, be open to it's not like some kind of tourist, whatever, I'm going to roll up and they're going to be maybe there's going to be some hiccups because they don't do this all the time, but that's part of the beauty of
You
the
know,
experience for us. What we can do, what they can do, I think, is to have this better long-term mentality and to focus on they need to sell terroir over grapes because at some point someone somewhere can always make a grape for cheaper.
true.
If Ribeiro is selling Trechadura, well, I hate to tell you, but next door in Monterrey, they've got this big wide valley and you can mechanize, baby, all you want.
Right.
So you can always do it for cheaper. They had this problem with Godello. Rueda, which is famous for Verdejo, which is not a particularly costly grape or wine, shall we say.
Right.
Rueda authorized Godello as a secondary variety. So it's not like you can make a 100% Godello, market it as Godello. But Bierzo, Valdeorras, Monterrey, they all threw a fit because they see the writing on the wall. They know what's going to
Right.
happen. It's that someday somebody is going to come along and if they're marketing a grape and the end consumer doesn't care where it's from, as
From
long as they get that grape, somebody's always going to do it cheaper.
people. Mhm.
So if you want to keep these beautiful wine regions and if you want to incentivize people to do this heroic viticulture or to do, to farm these tiny little small holdings that's so typical in Galicia, it's not like they have 200 acres of grapes that they're farming with a tractor. They have the size of a New York studio apartment that they're farming, that then they have 165 of those little plots that they have to go
Right.
around and farm by hand. So if you want to incentivize that, you have to communicate that to the consumer. And I think the communication can be a lot better. There's so much to love about Galicia, and there are so many things that that make its wines really belong with the best wines. I truly believe this, the best wines of the world that serious collectors can get into Galicia. That people who are drinking Burgundy, who are drinking Riesling, who are drinking, insert other cult wine here, right? That people can really get it. That people who are drinking Jura, right? There's a lot of parallels. Northern Rhone. People can get into these wines in the top expressions. So Galicia needs to lean into that, and everything else will follow. They need to communicate the region, the terroir, and then everything else is gonna come into place.
Yeah, it's interesting you're saying that because I think that's absolutely right. People can really truly fall in love and be culty over these wines. It's just a matter of learning what these regions are known for. Absolutely. You can, I like that you said it. So there's always somebody out there that can make it cheaper, right? Doesn't
And
mean
this is something, yeah, and this is something that I'm focused on myself. So Wines of Galicia, I work in the wine industry in a different aspect. So Wines of Galicia, I don't make any money from it in the sense of, I sell some merch. This is my plug. Go check out my Albariño hats on the website. Um, but it's not, I'm a freelance writer. I write in, Decanter and Jancis Robinson, World of Fine Wine, but it's not what I make my main money from. But I'm not employed by Galicia, by
Galicia.
the Galician government, by Dio Rias Baixas or anything like that. And frankly, I like it better that way because it gives me the independence to be able to say things like this on this podcast,
Right,
right? That
right.
hey, they need to get better at this. They need to do this. So what I'm trying to do in my little grain of sand, whatever, is just help people to understand that this is an amazing region and help them to understand more about it so that they can love it even better. That's the kind of tagline, right? The wines of Galicia, everything you need to know to learn them, love them, and drink them, right? There wasn't really any comprehensive English information, and so that's why I wanted to make this site was to help people get into Galicia and to show them, look, there's so much here. There's something for everybody. Absolutely everybody.
As a region, we see more and more regions coming together to do sustainability, regenerative farming, regulations being placed upon the individual, denominations. Is Galicia following in this suit? Are they starting to regulate that we need to be sustainable or regenerative by certain times?
Not right now. Galicia is it's difficult when it rains all the time to farm 100% organically. In Rias
True,
Baixas, for example,
true.
there's only one producer who is completely certified organic, and she loses like,
Three
half to
quarters of her.
two-thirds. Exactly, right? Or somebody like Bernardo Esteves, right? Super cult producer in Ribeiro. He loses like two-thirds of his crop every year. So it's really, really hard to actually make wine and be completely certified, blah, blah, blah. However, a lot of people are just naturally moving towards this, gravitating towards this because they believe that it's the way forward. Um, did I wish that the administrative bureaucratic organizations would do something? Sure. Are they doing it? Not really. But I think people as in general, winemakers are just moving in that generation because in that direction because there's no other way.
Right. And now another problem we're having in the wine world, at least here, um,
Yeah.
and I know in France and everything, is that we are seeing a reduction in consumption.
Yeah.
Fruit, it's not a good time to be a farmer. There's a lot of fruit that's being left on the vine because the wineries themselves are not making as much because consumption is down. Or do we see that also in Galicia?
Yeah, I'm working on an article for the blog right now about the kind of the Albariño bubble. Is it finally bursting? Because this year what we saw was a record harvest in Rias Baixas,
Mhm.
but the demand has begun to descend. I won't say plummet, but demand is decreasing. So what does that translate into? Well, that means that the price of grapes go down. And so before, when you had wineries who were paying €2, 50, €3, €4 even for a kilo, now you get like a euro 50. So that makes it really hard for growers to make a living. There's a lot of fruit that stays on the vine. Um, this is because, again, it goes back to when you sell a grape and the grape goes out of fashion. Now in Spain, I was in Spain in August, and a family friend who's not a wine person at all, we're having a meal, and she goes, "Oh yeah, I don't drink Albariño. It's too acidic. It gives me heartburn. I prefer Godello," which was just the anecdotal confirmation of this trend that they're saying Godello is on the rise. So now, of course, you're going to see everybody go and
Going to good
plant more
day.
Godello, and the price is
Yep.
going to, this is the way it goes. But as far as red wine goes, woof, it's tough out there.
Is it?
Galicia, Ribera Sacra is probably the Ribera Sacra and Monterrey, I guess, would probably be the number one and number two red wine regions in Galicia. But Ribera Sacra, since its inception, has been known for Mencía,
Mencía.
but this kind of young Mencía. It's not like it's barrel aged. It's not. There are people that do it, but 90% of the production of the region stays within Galicia, and out of that, the majority is young wine, just to be consumed young, just to drink
Hmm.
in the at the bar, whatever. So now people are moving away from that, and so they've had for the past couple of years, they've had to do green harvest, they've had to have apply for crisis distillation
Oh,
subsidies.
wow.
So yeah, it's really tough out there as well. And that also, given the fact that the average grower is like 65 years old, so and they farm these tiny little plots, when you don't have a guaranteed buyer from some of these larger wineries that have a lot of surplus wine in their tanks, they say, sorry, no contract this year. If you're retired and you're just doing this to make a little money, you're gonna say, well, screw it. I'm just gonna abandon my
Our
vines. I'm not
vines.
gonna do it anymore. And these people's children are also, they're living in the cities at this point. They're not incentivized to keep going. So it's kind of a really dire situation. Luckily, there are people who are charging a price that is worthy of the labor
Right.
that goes into the wine. Some people. So yeah, I mean, to answer the question succinctly, right? Yes, there is definitely a problem with a drop in consumption. What I will say is I think Galicia is a little bit protected from that, just because the styles of wines, the reds tend to be lighter and fresher,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of white wine, and white wine is something that is not. It's trending down with the rest of wine in general, but as far as like a color of wine goes, it's not trending down as nearly as
As
as heavily as
quickly.
red as
Right.
quickly. Exactly. Yeah. So fingers crossed,
Yeah.
that Galicia can find a little niche in this new weird, wacky demographic that's the new wine drinker. Yeah.
Right, right. All right. So if you were going to host a perfect Galician wine dinner at your house, what would be the menu? Do you give me a appetizer, a main, and dessert? And then, of course, what are you pairing with it?
Well, first of all, I'd have to cook. If there were six of us, I'd have to cook for 80 people. That's the Galician way.
Okay.
Is you are sort of you've undone two notches of your belt and you're about to roll out of your seat, and then your friend's mother comes over and she's like, "Do you want me to fry you an egg? Are you still hungry?" Um, I think you have to have pimientos de padrón, right? These padrón peppers that are kind of
Mm,
sautéed, fried, and have a little salt on them. You have to have pulpo, octopus. Pulpo a feira is octopus. They chop it up, they serve it on a wooden plate, drizzled with olive oil, paprika, and salt. Um, you'd have to have some kind of meat. Chuletón, right, is this big, huge tomahawk steak. Galicia is known for its beef in the interior.
okay.
Happy cows, happy beef. It's some of the best. If you go to these crazy Michelin starred, Asador Echevarri or whatever, these crazy kind of temples of grilling in Spain, odds are that it's going to be Galician beef that you're served.
Okay.
Definitely that. But I could not, not have seafood, and so I would have to have some kind of fish dish. Um, and then for dessert, man, you go to all of these restaurants, they have the menu del día, right? And so you have your starter, your main, and then you have dessert and coffee. And the
Okay.
waiter comes over and they rattle off, they say, okay, today we have tarte de la abuela, we have tarte de queso, we have tarte de Santiago, we have fruta, yogurt, flan, whatever. So I don't know. I don't know if I can pick a dessert, but something really typical is the tarte de Santiago, the Santiago cake, which is made from almond flour. And
Okay.
the typical presentation is that they have these kind of not a mold. I guess it's a mold, but it's there's a specific cross of Santiago that's like symbolic of Santiago, of course, is St. James, right? And so the cross of St. James, they do that, they lay out the metal thing on the cake and then they put powdered sugar over it. So when they remove it, it's like the outline of the cross of St. James on the Tarta de Santiago. So that's super typical. So I guess that would be my Galician feast and all of the wines, all of them. You're not
All
going
of
to make me
them.
pick a wine. I'm not going to fall for that.
Okay. All right. Um, and then I have a lightning round, just three questions that
Nice.
are quick think off of, whatever comes top to the mind.
Okay.
So if Galicia was a person at a dinner party, how would you describe them? Would they be the life of the party, the poet in the corner, or someone who brought the really good cheese? How would you?
Galicia would be the person in the corner who doesn't talk to anybody, and then after 3 glasses of wine, would whip out the bagpipes and start dancing, and then would be the life of the party.
I like it. I like it. That's fantastic.
Galicians are kind of famously like suspicious, right? They're like, but then once you're friends, you're friends. Like you're in. You're like, come
Mhm.
into my house. We're gonna feed you till you burst. We're gonna dance till 3 in the morning. It's gonna be great.
Do you know how to play the back? Did you learn how to play the bagpipes?
I dabbled, but
No, it's not
I would
easy,
not dare to
right?
perform. It's not easy. No, no, no.
It's not easy. And so you're not going to get away without it, but
Oh
you're on
no.
a deserted island and you can only have one Galician wine. What are you going to take? You can have an unlimited amount of it, but you can only have one.
Oh man. Um, that's tough. That's tough. Um, do I have to tell you a producer and all of
No, oh
that,
no, no, no,
or
no,
can I
no.
just
Just
say
give
okay?
no.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
you're not gonna get people mad at me. Come on.
No, no, I don't
Um,
want anybody getting angry.
okay, I'm gonna take Caíño Tinto from Rias Baixas because it's a red wine that drinks like a white, and so I can have best of both worlds.
There you go. See, you
There you
got
go.
your way out of there. See?
There you
Yeah.
go.
I was gonna say it's not necessarily what is your favorite grape variety. There's logic behind
There
why
is
you
logic.
take
There it
certain
is. Yeah.
things, you know. A lot of people out, if it's non-Galicia, a lot of people will say, well, I will take champagne because it pairs with so many different foods, so like
Right.
there's logic behind it.
There you
Okay.
go.
And then, what is the like most American thing you did while you were in Galicia that made the locals go, yeah, he's not from here?
Oh man, the most American thing. Okay, well, I don't know if it was the locals, but we had Thanksgiving every year. And the first year that I was there, we couldn't get a turkey, and so I got a chicken, but I got a chicken that had the head on it from the market. And I was in this crappy student apartment, and we spent like 10 minutes trying to saw the thing's head off with like a dull knife. It was so horrible, but it turned out great. We invited a bunch of Spanish people. They loved Thanksgiving. And I would say the second most American thing happened to me this last summer, actually, not even while I was living there. I was with my parents and we're driving around, and there's lunchtime is a very specific window. And so if you
Okay.
miss the window from like, 1:30 to 3:30, that's it. Kitchen's closed, you're not eating. But you can't
Okay.
go before and you can't go after.
Okay.
But with my parents, whatever, we had to go check into our hotel. So we're driving around Rios Baixas, we get in this little town, and I call the restaurant. We found a restaurant, and I'm like, hey, can we come at 1:15? And that's a little early. 15 minutes, but it's still early. So the waiter, he does two things. One, he seats us upstairs in the corner, which is where they put the Americans, as you know. In every restaurant, wherever you go, the
There's an
annoying
American quarter.
Americans upstairs in the corner, out of the way. So he puts us up there. And then he goes, oh, where are you from? And I was being a smartass, and I said, well, we came from Coruña in Galicia. And he's like, no, where are you really from? Because if
Yeah,
you were from here, you wouldn't have eaten at 1:15.
15.
So there you go. We were 15 minutes
It's
early, but that's
early.
how you could tell. They're like, no, you're not from around here, are you? Yeah.
That's funny. Oh, well, I will say that's one of the things about just traveling to Europe in general is, here dinner is like 6 o'clock, right?
Right.
You know, six
Right.
o'clock, and we're done. There, it's like you're not sitting down until 9:30, 10
Yeah.
o'clock, but
Yeah. Yeah.
they are very specific. You cannot eat before this time. You cannot.
And they'll stick to their guns too. It's like if
Yep.
you arrive 2 minutes late, nope, kitchen's closed.
Nice and closed. Yep. Yeah.
Go
And
get a
then they're in the
pizza.
back. They're like,
Yeah.
American.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go.
So, uh, looking ahead 5 to 10 years, where do you see yourself, Wines of Galicia, as a brand? What are you hoping to see in these upcoming years?
Well, the whole original idea was to write the Galicia book, right? To write the wines of Galicia. So if you've got any listeners who want to give me the fantastic book deal, then call me. No, I think that I'm just really enjoying the freedom of not having to do this to make a living. I mean, I'm lucky that I can be in the wine industry in a different aspect. I'm in imports and distribution. Um, and I'm lucky that this is the passion project. And so it's not something that I have to get up and look at as, oh God, why did I do this? Why did I sign up for this? I want to see it grow. I mean, I want to see more people know Galicia and love Galicia. I'm really enjoying the writing thing. There's always something to tell people about that they might not know about Galicia. So, I'd like to hopefully consolidate this position, as I don't think there's a lot of people vying for the Galicia expert position these days. But it's great to just this is such a great community to meet people like yourself, like to meet people who are so passionate about wine and wine regions of the world and this region that deserves a lot more love. And so I just want to meet as many people as possible and spread the Galicia message and keep it going, see where it goes.
How frequently do you get to go back?
I've been in the States full time since 2022, so 3 years now, and I've been back at least once a year.
Oh, good.
So once or
Okay.
once or twice a year is the frequency right now.
All
In five
right.
or 10 years, hopefully it'll be like, oh yeah, I'm living there part time.
I've got a part-time place there.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your passion and knowledge of Galicia. I mean, I have such a passion for the area. It really just, I fell in love with all of Spain, but that is just, and I think maybe it is the Irish. I don't know. I just have that tendency to see it in, and the granite, and it
Yeah,
just every picture I've seen is just an incredible picture.
it's a
Um,
really beautiful place. Yeah, you would
so,
you could not fall in love with it.
but before I let you go, I just want you to be able to tell people how they can find you, either on social media, website, how they can get to contact you.
Cool. Yeah. If you want to check out the website, it's winesofgalicia.com. I'm Noah Chichester. So if you want to connect on Instagram, it's at N for Noah. Chichester is Chichester at N Chichester. And if you want to shoot me a note, it's Noah at winesofgalicia.com.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, and
Thank you, Lori.
have a great day. And it's kind of a little early, but it's water, but I wish it
I
was
was going to say we can sign off in
Galician.
Galicia. They don't say salud, they say saude. So we can say
Saude. Oh,
saude.
Saude.
There you go.
Okay, wonderful. I usually do a slancha, but I will do Saude for
There you
today.
go.
All right. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Gotta get my